What's up? So today we got Arrow Season 1, Episode 3, Lone Gunmen. So this episode we start off with another narration, and he's talking about James Holder and about how James Holder caused a bunch of fires, and there was too many funerals, and how it needs to be fought, and he's the one to do it. So basically, he goes to confront James Holder about as James Holder is talking to somebody, and and he talks about how many people died in those fires, how many, but then another guy shows up and shoots James Holder, and Oliver has to get out of there because obviously he does, So Oliver comes back, and there's police, and Oliver's like, hey, what's going on? And Diggle's like, hey, Thea and her friends broke into some store trying to buy some dresses, and she was drinking because it was the breathalyzer, like Christmas tree. And he's like, where were you? And he's like, about how he went to dinner and how he was at dinner and had to go to the bathroom and he never came back. And Diggle's like, I guess I'll be having to watch you pee. Diggle is the best character in this entire show for this season. So stalling Oliver's mom because the last episode where she revealed that the Queen's Gambit went down. Still don't like her, but yeah. Yeah, so Warren is like, hey Thea, go to school, but Thea's like, nah, she's gonna stay home and take a sick day, and she's like, oh yeah, then get some rest. But Oliver's like, hey, you're letting her play hooky, and she's like, when Thea gets this way, and yeah, Thea's the worst character in this season. She's like, and she's like, when Thea gets this way, you need to give her time to give her some space, And Oliver's like, hey, he let Robert and Moira let him get away with murder, which is really dark, but the show is dark and gritty, so he's like, back then he would need less space and more parenting. So yeah, Oliver, tell your mom, but yeah. So Oliver gets a flashback to when So Oliver gets a flash. Yeah, so Oliver was hit with one of Deadshot's arrows. That's what Interpol calls him, Deadshot. And he uses Chiari, and obviously Oliver was hit, so he had to eat some grass and drink water to cure himself. So Quentin is in the investigating the scene, and obviously Quentin isn't buying it because he doesn't think that the vigilante he's trying to catch would just switch from arrows to bullets and poison. Like, he doesn't buy this. This is why Quentin is the best character in this episode, because he's not like his partner. His partner is like, it was the Hood. Like, the Hood did it. But Quentin's like, no, I'm not believing this. I'm gonna find my own evidence. Quentin is the best character in this episode, even though some episodes he could, not be the best character, but in this episode he is the best character because he does not want to believe that the Hood did it. Because, then decides to go to the Russian Brava, where he is a captain. What? How? How is he a captain of the Russian mob? I know that in the first episode he speaks Russian. So yeah, so he's like, hey, I want to see Alexei Leonov guy, and he even dismantles a gun, which is like, how, like, so, yeah, so he's like, so yeah, so Oliver decides to, of course, make a nightclub, because, of course, people wouldn't suspect that, oh boy, Oliver Queen is, like, people want to know, like, because Oliver's mom is, like, talking to Diggle about where Oliver goes every night. And for some reason, Moira's like, she's the client of Diggle, which makes no sense. Wouldn't she be Diggle's boss, not Diggle's client? That was last episode. But this episode, I'm just saying, I forgot to mention it. So Oliver just wants to make sure, like, Oliver just wants to make sure, like, oh yeah, like, you know, wants to make sure, like, oh yeah, like, people know, like, where he's going every time he just ditches Diggle. So, he's going to a nightclub. So, yeah, it's like, and his base is like, this is like a, well, it's like a cover for his base. So, yeah. So while he's hanging out, while he's hanging out with Tommy and Carl, and gets a call from Diggle's brother's wife. He's hanging out with Diggle's brother's wife. Diggle is, and obviously he gets a call from. Yeah, there's a whole scene like Oliver goes to Poison owned by Max Fuller, which obviously Max Fuller hates Oliver because Oliver slept with Max Fuller's fiance before the wedding. So Wealthy there, Oliver's like, aren't you supposed to be grounded at the end? She's like, well, thank you for that, by the way, because she's drunk, so she's not gonna know what she's saying. So yeah, she's like, oh yeah, Oliver, you should know that Laurel and Tommy were sleeping together while they thought you were dead. So yeah, and he's like, and yeah, so, and Oliver's acting like, Oliver knew because of the first episode when he saw them together. He already knew. For some reason, he didn't let them know that he knew, because obviously it would have, yeah. So Max Fuller shows up. He tries to beat up Tommy and Oliver, for of course he's still mad at Oliver. But then Laurel shows up with her badass skills and beats all these guys. And he's like, Laurel with DSN. Laurel's like, Oliver, me and Tommy don't need your blessing, but we also don't need your forgiveness. Oh, Laurel may be the worst, but she's also a savage. Laurel may be the worst during season 1, but she's also a savage. Yeah. My Aunt Dewey is the best. Another my Aunt Dewey reference, because she's the best. Yeah. I hope when she's watching this video, she'll be saying, oh, my nephew, I'm her nephew. I think she's the best. So, yeah. I just like making my Aunt Dewey references. So, yeah. So, anyway, back to the episode. At hand, everybody. Oliver, while hanging, as I said before, hanging out, Tommy's like, hey, it was wrong to sleep with your girlfriend while you were supposedly dead, dude. And he's like, it's no big deal, bro. We're still bros. And he's like, yeah, bro. He's like, yeah. So he gets a call from those, and he's like, yeah, the guy you're looking for is Floyd Lawton. So he decides to confront Floyd, but Floyd shoots at him. So Oliver of course, has to go to Felicity Smoke, aka this version of Chloe Sullivan. And yeah, as people call her. The Arrow's version of Chloe Sullivan. And from Smallville. And yeah, so he basically lies to her saying that it was in a bad neighborhood. And she's like, and he spilled coffee on it. And Felicity's like, these are bullet holes. And he's like, his coffee shop's in a bad neighborhood. And so yeah, so another guy gets killed by Deadshot, because of course. And yeah, and Quentin shows that he still doesn't like the Queen family. So yeah. So, and yeah, and yes. So, obviously, yeah, Moira confronts Thea. Moira's like, hey, your dad and you always had a special relationship, and yeah, Robert and Thea always had a special relationship because one day Thea brought home a cat, but it was really a tiger, and she understood why they had to take it back. So, wow, that must be really hard, bringing home a tiger. So, yeah, so they get dressed for the Robert's gala thing, and Oliver's like, oh yeah, you're in danger. But he's like, yeah, Moira like shared your like saying, oh, we're in danger, but she wouldn't have come. And Oliver's like, oh yeah, Sherry lost one husband, and yeah, he's like, if Moira would have thought the same thing, she wouldn't have come here. So yeah, so Quentin sees Deadshot gunning one guy, he pushes him out of the way, another guy gets shot, and it's basically just like he keeps shooting, and Oliver goes like, hey, get her, Oliver. He's like, what about you, Oliver? And Oliver suits up. Diggle, for some reason, decides to be like, oh, I'm gonna follow him, and decides to follow him, and yeah, Deadshot decides to be in like, hey, we're in the same profession here, and Oliver's like, no, we're not. Your profession is murder. And Oliver's like, you've killed people before. Deadshot's like, you killed people before. And Oliver's like, for the people I care about. And yeah, and he takes one, and he shoots Deadshot in the eye. And then, but as he's doing that, Dig shows up, and Dig shows up passed out, and Dig shows up, and Dig wakes up in the Arrow Cave, and Oliver unmasked, saying, hey. And what a way to end your third episode. Just have the best character in the show be now known that the main character is the vigilante, and have him just say, hey, like, that's it, like, OMG, like, I am just, I'm saying, hey, like, that's just so funny. This is like, and then the episode ends, because of course it does, because we can't have, like, next episode where we pick up from it. But, okay, so I thought the episode was really good. The Laurel, even though sometimes she can be she's just, mad at Oliver because she thinks that Oliver killed her sister. So, of course, and Oliver also cheated on her. So, of course, she's mad at him. But she also slept with, but I like how Oliver was cool with the whole him and Tommy and Laurel dating thing, because that's the first episode he found out. But then the first episode, and Laurel knew, like, she's like, Laurel tells Tommy that Oliver knew, but Tommy's like, why didn't Oliver say anything? And she's like, I don't know either, Laurel. Why didn't Oliver say anything? Maybe it would have, yeah. It is weird to have, like, it is probably weird for Oliver having his ex-girlfriend date his best friend. Yeah, but anyway, I guess I'll see you next time for another episode.